So in this reading vlog, I am going to be reading until I find a 5-star thriller. I have done a similar video to this before with romance books, so I'll leave that linked in the cards and in the description just in case you would like to check it out. That was actually a couple of years ago now, so it's long overdue that I do this type of video again. And gonna be honest, this was meant to be reading until I find my first 5-star thriller of the year, because up until a couple of days ago, I hadn't read a 5-star thriller yet this year. And then I went and read one right before I was planning on starting this vlog. In my defense, I wasn't expecting to give that book 5 stars. I'd given the previous books in the series 4 stars. I should probably tell you what the book is. So the book that I've just given 5 stars is Human Remains by Jo Callahan, which is the 3rd book in the Cat and Lock series. I gave the first 2 books 4 stars, so I was expecting that the 3rd book was also going to be 4 stars, and it wasn't. I gave it 5 because the ending has me so excited to continue this series. I was expecting it to be a trilogy for some reason, but I forget sometimes with thriller series, quite often they go on for more than a trilogy. So yeah, that is my most recent 5-star thriller, and I want to chase that high. So I have a sort of loose plan for the books that I'm thinking about reading in this vlog, but obviously this vlog could end at any point as soon as I give a book 5 stars. The first book that I have decided to pick up was decided by my library because I reserved this book a while ago and my holder finally came in. So I've started the audiobook for Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I have read a book by this author before. I read Rock, Paper, Scissors a few years ago, and I also listened to the audiobook for that. I think that was also narrated by Richard Armitage, who has just an amazing voice. I think I gave it 3.5 or 4 stars in the end because I found it quite predictable, but I enjoyed the experience of listening to the audiobook. So very excited to be listening to the audiobook for Beautiful Ugly. Hopefully I enjoy this one even more. Because I'm listening to this through my library app, I can't see exactly how far into it I am because it doesn't give me the percentage or anything, but I think I'm about 20 to 25% of the way through, and I don't know if this is going to be 5 stars. I am intrigued. In this, we are following a guy whose wife went missing the year before. He was actually on the phone to her when she was driving home, and she stopped the car because she saw a woman on the road in front of her. He heard her get out of the car, but she never returned, and it's now a year later. He's actually an author, but he's been struggling with writer's block. So his, I want to say, agent sends him to this remote Scottish island to stay in a cabin for like a few months to see if that sparks his creativity again and helps him get over this writing block. The setting and the atmosphere so far has been done really well. I don't know if I'm meant to like this main character. I don't think I am. I think he's meant to be a bit of an unreliable narrator, but we will see how that goes. I'm planning on listening to some more of this now because I'm about to take my lunch break and pop out for a walk. Hopefully I will next check in with you around the halfway point and I'll give you a prediction on whether I think it is going to be 5 stars. Hi everyone, happy Monday. I am here to bring you my midway update for Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney because I reached the halfway point, I think, yesterday. I'm fairly sure I'm halfway through. As I said, I'm listening to this through my library app and it doesn't give me percentages or anything, but I think this is a 9.5-hour audiobook and I'm about 4.5 to 5 hours of the way through. So in terms of my prediction, I think this is going to be a strong 4 stars. It depends on obviously how it ends. I don't think it's going to be a 5 stars for a few different reasons, but I'm going to start with some positives. So I like Alice Feeney's writing. I think she has this ability to build an atmosphere and the setting feels really eerie. I think it helps that it's taking place on this remote Scottish island where there's only 25 permanent residents. This guy has arrived there and some stuff just feels weird. Like, he thinks he might be seeing stuff, but he's not sure because he's not really sleeping very well, so it could all just be in his mind. When he's talking to these people on this island, it all feels very strange and not quite right, and I have some theories, but I don't know whether I'm right, obviously. I'm going to be really intrigued to see what happens with that. The main character is a writer, and I really enjoy books that are to do with writers or authors or the publishing industry. His wife was also a writer. She was a journalist, and I don't want to go too much into detail on the plot. Obviously, I don't want to spoil anything, but I really like that element. The one thing that I'm not loving, and I'm not meant to be enjoying this, I know that, but there's been a few uncomfortable sexual scenes, and they're meant to be uncomfortable. There's a purpose to them. I just don't enjoy reading them. So that's the only little thing that I wanted to mention. But yeah, I really like the audiobook. Richard Armitage just has one of those voices. It's a slow burn, but that is my preference. I would rather a story takes its time to build the tension and the suspense, as long as it delivers on the ending. So I finished reading Beautiful Ugly last night, and I don't know how to talk about this book, so I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to tell you the journey that I went on with this book, because when I heard the synopsis, I thought, okay, I'm intrigued. It doesn't sound like the most unique plot. I feel like I've read many books where you have a couple and one of them goes missing and the other is kind of struggling to move on, but I've read another book by Alice Feeney. I know that I like her writing, so I'm going to give this a go. And at the halfway point, I was enjoying it. I liked the isolated setting. I was, you know, like confused, but in a good way. Throughout most of the second half, I was reading or listening with a permanent frown on my face because I was really confused by some stuff that was happening. I felt like I'd worked out what was going on, but also if I was right, I was thinking, how does that make sense? Then I got to the ending, and I'm just going to tell you now, I hated the ending, and it's such a shame because up until I would say the last 20%, this was feeling like a solid 4 stars. But the ending, it wasn't so much what happened, it was the logic behind what happened. I can't really suspend my disbelief that much. I love it when I get to a reveal or a twist and I can look back on the book and think, okay, I could have saw that come in. I couldn't have done that with this book, and I think that's why I feel a little bit cheated. I don't know how to rate this because it was a 4 stars for most of the book, but then yeah, I didn't like the ending, so maybe it's like a 3.5 to a 3. I feel like it's quite harsh to rate a book down a whole star just because of hating the ending, but that's the main thing that I'm going to remember when I think back on this book. I think this would be a really good book actually to discuss with other people, because whatever you feel about the ending, you're going to have a strong opinion on it. So I would still recommend this book if it sounds interesting to you and you like slower paced, character driven domestic thrillers. I think it's still worth picking up this book. Just be prepared that the ending is quite divisive. I've already looked through Goodreads and yeah, some people love the ending and some people, like me, had some issues with it. So yeah, not a 5 stars, but that's fine. It does mean that we're going to be continuing with this vlog. And for my next 2 books, because I've decided I'm going to read 2 books side by side, I have an arc of With a Vengeance by Riley Sager, which is his newest release. So I want to read that, and I have to read it physically because I have an ebook through NetGalley. At the same time though, I need a new audiobook to listen to. So I had a look on BookBeat and I've decided I'm going to pick up Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, which is a sci-fi thriller. I actually looked through Goodreads because I was thinking the best way for me to get a 5 stars is to read something that's popular, and this has over a 4 average rating on Goodreads, and loads of people have actually recommended this to me directly because I like sci-fi thrillers. So I'm going to listen to the audiobook for that, and then at the same time physically I'm going to read With a Vengeance by Riley Sager, which is a revenge thriller set on a train in the 1940s. I will give you proper synopsises once I've started both books. Normally I try not to read 2 books from the same genre at the same time, but because these seem like both very different thrillers, one's a sci-fi thriller, one's a historical mystery, I think I'm going to be okay.
You might wake up one day having fought for things you don't need. Spend your whole life in vain. Was it worth the pain you're haunting? You've been dreaming all day, trying to fix what's hopeless. You're denying your pain. The past is gone and broken. Taught to feel so righteous and high, but
I have decided that today is going to be a lazy day. I had a really long day yesterday, and today I am home alone because my partner's gone out to watch the football or something. I should know this. He did tell me. I'm just very, very tired and my brain is not working right now. So I'm going to have a nice cozy day, and there's 2 books that I am currently prioritising for this vlog. The first is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I started this on the way into Birmingham yesterday. Actually, no, that's a lie. I started it a few days ago, but I continued it on the way into Birmingham yesterday. I own a physical copy because my partner has actually read this before, and in terms of a brief synopsis for this, I don't want to say too much, but we're following this guy whose name I can't remember, Jason Desson. Something happens to him, something very traumatic and confusing, and he wakes up to find that his life has completely changed and he's no longer married to his wife and his son doesn't exist. And the story goes from there. It's very action-packed right from the beginning. It throws you straight into things. It's a real adrenaline-fueled ride, and so far I'm enjoying it. It is sci-fi, like I said, but it's also definitely a thriller. I feel like I know what's going on, but I don't know whether I'm meant to know what's going on or whether that's meant to be a surprise or a twist, or whether I'm wrong. I don't know. But yeah, so far this has been really fast-paced. Because I don't read fast-paced thrillers that often, which sounds really weird. That's a really weird thing to say, but I tend to prefer thrillers that are more atmospheric and that are slow and that are drawn out, and it's more about the tension. So something like this I don't read that often, or at least not anymore, and so when I do, it feels different, and yeah, I'm intrigued to see what direction this goes in. My partner has warned me that he didn't like the ending of this, so we'll see how I get on with that. I'll probably listen to a little bit more when I pop out for a walk later, because even though I want a lazy day, I'm still going to try and get my steps in, so I'm going to pop into town in a bit. Otherwise, I haven't yet started With a Vengeance by Riley Sager because the NetGalley arc was just not good. I don't want to talk too much about this because I know many people probably aren't going to be interested, but if you've not heard of NetGalley, it's a website that you can use to request ARCs or advanced copies of books if you are someone who reviews books online, and there's 3 different ways that you can read a book once you've been approved. There's an app that you can use, but I don't like reading on my phone, so what I usually do is I send the book directly to my Kindle, and I've been using NetGalley for over 5 years and it's never been a problem, but for some reason recently the arcs are coming through and the formatting is just unreadable. So what I'm going to have to do is read it through the web browser on my partner's Kindle. It's been a whole thing this morning trying to work out how I'm going to read this book, but yeah, I am going to prioritise that today while my partner's out, because obviously throughout this week he's probably going to want to use his tablet in the evenings, so I don't know otherwise when I'm going to get round to reading it. Do we reckon I could read the whole thing in one day? I don't know. I'm sure I've read other Riley Sager books in 1 or 2 sit-ins, so that could be my mission for today, but it's not going to happen if I sit here chatting to you, so I'm going to let you go and I'll check in with you once I have some reading updates. It's funny that I said I wanted to have a chill day today, and instead I have done anything but chill. I filmed 2 vlog updates earlier, and then I also filmed, edited and uploaded my June TBR, which will be going live by the time this vlog goes live. I mean, I don't know when this vlog is going to go live because I don't know when I'm going to find a 5-star thriller, but I have made a start on With a Vengeance. I am 20% of the way through and I'm liking it so far. It's mostly been set up. We've been introduced to the characters that are involved. It's kind of a closed circle murder mystery. The main character, I guess, is called Anna, and her father owned a train company. However, something happened 12 years ago and she has collected together the people that she feels are responsible for the downfall of her family and ruining her life. So we're on this train with this main character. She's also got an accomplice, and yeah, this group of people that she wants to get revenge on. However, you know from the prologue that one person ends up dead and it seems like there's a murderer on board, and so that throws a spanner in her plan. Really like the atmosphere and the setting so far, considering that this is multi-POV. I think Riley Sager has done a good job of distinguishing the different characters, so I'm not confused. Like, it's a closed circle of characters, so it's good that I can tell them all apart. But yeah, so far I don't really have any predictions on what direction I think this is going in. I know that one of the main issues that some people had with Middle of the Night, which was his release last year, some people found that boring. I didn't find it boring. I really liked Middle of the Night. I think I gave it 4 stars. I'm worried because this already only has like a 3.6 average rating on Goodreads and it's not even come out yet. So I'm hoping that's just people marking it down for the sake of marking it down and it's not early reviewers disliking it. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to try and get to the halfway point tonight, which, considering I read 20% earlier without even trying, I think is manageable. And then I'm just going to have to ask my partner if I can borrow his tablet for the rest of this week. I have reached the halfway point in both the books that I'm currently reading. In fact, I'm past the halfway point in both books. I think I'm 50% of the way through Dark Matter and I'm about 60% of the way through With a Vengeance. So I thought now would be a good time to let you know what I'm thinking about both of these, and also I thought it might be quite fun if I said which of these I think has the most potential at this point to be 5 stars by the end. Obviously they could both be 5 stars, which would be amazing, or neither of them could be 5 stars, in which we're back to square one. But let's start with Dark Matter because this is the one that I started first. I am really liking the journey that we're on in this book. It's very action driven. I think I've said that already. I can completely understand why it was adapted into a TV show. It's very plot driven. The main character isn't someone who has a lot of depth and a lot of development. I feel like with this book you're meant to insert yourself into the story and try and imagine what you would do in this situation, and it's very mind-bendy. Very much enjoying that. I feel like I don't have much to say because a lot of my thoughts are to do with the plot and I can't tell you the plot because obviously that would be spoilery. Hopefully I will have some more to say about it by the end, but compared to With a Vengeance, With a Vengeance has a much slower, steadier pace. It's more character driven than Dark Matter, but it's very much, it feels like we're building up to something, and I think that's why at this point I would say that Dark Matter has the bigger potential to be 5 stars because I've really enjoyed the journey. I feel like, yeah, if the ending is disappointing then it's not going to matter too much unless it's like really offensive. But I feel like when I look back on this book I'm going to remember how I had such a great time, whereas With a Vengeance I've enjoyed the journey so far, but it does feel like we're building up to something, and if what we're building up to turns out to be disappointing, if it just kind of fizzles, then I am going to be disappointed, you know? So that's my prediction at this point. I'm hoping to finish With a Vengeance tonight because my partner is out again this evening, so I can steal his tablet for a few hours. I'm driving to the office tomorrow, so I'm hoping to listen to a good chunk of Dark Matter on my way there and back. Also, I've started a new knitting project, so that's something else that I could do actually this week. I could listen to my audiobook while working on my knitting. My plan is to finish both of these books within the next few days, and then we can either wrap up this vlog or we can choose another book. I'm really nervous. I think filming this kind of vlog, it does feel like there's more pressure for me to rate a book correctly. Sometimes with thrillers, I'll get to the end and I'll think, is that a 4 or a 5? And I'll give it a 4 in the moment, but then I won't be able to stop thinking about it, so I'll round up to a 5. And I feel like I can't really do that with this vlog because it's going to seem like inauthentic. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. We'll let you know once I have some more reading updates, hopefully later this evening or tomorrow once I've finished With a Vengeance.
Unlock the giants, I'm too young for dying. I fight with the
hopefully you will have just seen, I went to Hay-on-Wye yesterday. I can't remember if I mentioned in this vlog or my previous vlog that I was going, but I went to Hay-on-Wye yesterday, which if you don't know is a book town in Wales that has, I think it's something like 50 bookshops. It's amazing. If you love books and you ever have the opportunity to go, would really recommend it. This was my 4th year going. Me and my partner have this tradition of going around the time of Hay Festival. The first time I went was in 2022, which was just after we met. So yeah, it was really nice to spend the day in Hay Festival, well, in Hay-on-Wye, and also we went to Hay Festival. I did buy some bits and pieces while I was there. I didn't want to buy loads because I am trying not to buy too many books this year, but I decided to treat myself to an edition of 1984 by George Orwell. This is the Chiltern edition, and I got this in Adimans, which is one of my favourite bookshops in Hay-on-Wye. One of the last bookshops we went in was Peter Booth's bookshop, and towards the back they have a whole section on knitting and crocheting and crafty stuff like that, and I spotted this knitting pattern book, which is Knitting Peter Rabbit, Knitting Patterns from the Tales of Beatrix Potter, and I couldn't leave this. Like, I saw it and I kid you not, I was stood there for like 10 minutes trying to decide whether I should buy it, and I just had to. It was an impulse buy. Very excited to try out some of these. I had a quick look as well, and the patterns didn't seem that complicated compared to what I've done in the past, so hopefully I will get around to knitting some of these this year. Oh, I also picked up a circular knitting needle because I needed one for the pattern that I'm currently working on. In terms of reading updates though, I have now finished both books that I was reading, so I'm gonna start with A Vengeance by Riley Sager because that was the one that I finished first, and you may be able to tell based on the fact that I'm talking about it first, it wasn't a 5 stars. This I think I'm gonna give like a 3.5, but if I'm being honest, it's probably more like a 3. I didn't like the ending of this book, and it was such a shame because I was having such a good time. I stayed up late to finish this because I was so gripped and I needed to know how it was going to end, and I was disappointed. I got to the end and it wasn't like I hated the ending, it's just I felt like we had all of this build up and then the ending to me felt a bit rushed. One of the main issues that I had with The Only One Left, even though it's my 3rd favourite Riley Sager book, I didn't like the ending because it was twist after twist after twist and I was getting whiplash and I felt a similar way about With a Vengeance. So it wasn't bad. I would recommend it if you like the idea of a murder mystery set on a train. It's quite chaotic and dramatic, and I think some people aren't gonna vibe with that, but I had a good time, so I don't regret reading it. It's a Riley Sager book. I was always going to read it anyway, but not a 5 stars, unfortunately. I will have a dedicated review for that going live at some point in the next week or so, so look out for that if you're interested in hearing more thoughts. In better news though, I also finished Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and I'm giving this 5 stars, which I don't think I was expecting. When I started planning this vlog, obviously I didn't know how many books I was going to have to read, but I thought this would be, you know, a 4 stars. I didn't go into it expecting to dislike it, but it is a little out of my comfort zone. I want to read more sci-fi thrillers, but I think I'm always a little hesitant that they're going to feel more sci-fi than thriller, and this to me got the balance just right. I think if you've been hesitant to pick this up because it's a sci-fi thriller, don't be intimidated by the science aspect, because if you've ever seen a Marvel movie and the level of science in that, I think you'll be fine with this. To the point where I think if you were going into this for the science fiction element, I think you might find it a little underwhelming, but as a thriller, this was so thrilling. It's interesting because I was listening to this on the way home from work the other day, and I got to a point where something took me by surprise, and I got home and I was talking to my partner about it because he read this years ago. He didn't care about hearing spoilers, and I told him the part that I was at and how it was messing with my mind, and he turned to me and said, yeah, that's the part where it lost me. And I found that so interesting that the aspect of this that made it 5 stars for me was what made it not 5 stars for him. I just found that really interesting. But yeah, like I said, would really recommend this if you're looking for something that has a lot of adrenaline and that is going to be really gripping. It's very plot driven, but I think you can still empathise with what the main character is going through, and he is very much driven by his love for his wife, and sometimes that was a little bit cheesy. That's the only criticism that I have. Otherwise, really enjoyed this. So that brings me to the end of this reading vlog. I was expecting this to take me a lot longer, I'm not gonna lie. I had planned for this vlog to go live at some point mid-month, but I'm gonna try and get it live for tomorrow instead. I'm gonna move back the video that I had planned for tomorrow and put this live instead. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments, what was the last 5-star thriller that you read, and have you read any of the books that I talked about in this vlog? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Click subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me, but otherwise I will see you next time. Bye.